I'd just like to thank the people who invited me along for the day and tonight. Long time since I've been at King's High School. Very, very emotional when the haka was performed. I couldn't believe when we walked on the stage, just the feeling that I would go through in the next couple of minutes. It was, for those people who haven't been to King's for a while and to an assembly, unbelievable. The strength that sort of came out in the school during the assembly was just a huge surprise for me. I rang home tonight, I told my wife about it. Felt so guilty really that I hadn't been at the school for a long time. But Dan took me on a walk around the school at lunchtime, and the comment I really made to my wife, I didn't see any group at all that you expect to see when you walk around the school. I didn't see any scurrying away. I didn't see any group around the corner. When we went to the canteen, Dan, I shouldn't embarrass you, but he knew every name he spoke to. I couldn't believe it. I thought they all had name tags on. I couldn't believe it. Absolutely blown away by the day there today. And I just think the things I saw, and I know it's from a distance, the school's in very good heart. I wondered what to talk about tonight, and someone said, just go from A to here. What do you mean by that? Just talk about what you've done. And I don't mind doing that, but I want you to realise that I don't do this lightly, because I want you to think about some of the messages I want to give you, because it's very, very dear to me. Of course, I went to Caversham School, lived in Law Street. I went to McAndrew Intermediate, lived in East Avenue, and then I carried on to King's High School, and I love sport. I mentioned today in the assembly the feeling a young fella has when he's compared straight away as a third former to his older and successful brother. I found it very difficult the first year at high school, probably because I was compared to an older brother, and therefore the comments were, you're not as good as, or you'll never go far, or those sort of things. And I don't think teachers in those days realised how much that could cut to the quick and put you down so much. I'm pleased things have changed now. I still teach 2 days a week in Central Otago, and I'm around schools a bit, and I know things have definitely changed for the better. I absolutely loved the rest of my time at King's, and I'm not going to dwell on that for too long, because obviously I've got other things to say, but there were so many opportunities and so many people who are here tonight too. I'm sorry, I don't want to embarrass people, but I was so lucky to have Clive Geary and John Huggett and Ian Page. And they understood and encouraged me in certain ways that perhaps they may not have been doing the very best for the academic side of Warrenleys, but they understood Warrenleys. And they did encourage me a lot. It didn't matter what the sport was. They were unbiased about the sports, but they gave a lot of energy to me at the time. I don't think I would have got somewhere else. So I really did love my time. I need to tell you now about the first time I ever thought about this, because I wondered when I was going through school whether I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder, and I wanted to work out why that was. When I say a chip on my shoulder, I didn't like unfairness, and I knew that right from the start, but also didn't like it when it was them and us. And I think South Dunedin went through a bit of that. And when you went to Caversham and you compared yourself at the annual sports day with Maori Hill, or when you went to McAndrew Intermediate and you had a combined intermediate day with Tahuna and Balmacewen, and then you went to King's and you threw your gear together for the cricket team, and we had to combine the first and second 11 gear one time, which played Otago boys, and they had, a flash new grandstand and pavilion, and they had a coach on the sideline, full-time almost. You realise where you can get a chip on your shoulder about life, because you realise you've just spent 6 years being the underdog. And I don't know if that was a good thing for me or not, but it certainly developed an attitude, it developed a determination, and I know it's a negative, but it was the first time I realised I had this thing about I'll prove you buggers wrong. And I don't know whether that's a good motivation for people to have these days, but I think it gave me the first time I ever thought of, I don't mind losing, and I don't mind losing again, but I'm not going to lose after that. And I really did work very hard at winning. I remember one time at Kingswell, I played in the under 15 blue team. You know, have blue and gold. And we played Otago Boys, and we lost 54-0. And that hurt. It didn't hurt so much as the way they carried on. When I say they, I don't mean, we don't look over the fence anymore, but we had an injury in the first 15, and the first 15 game was coming up against the Otago Boys, and they asked me to play fullback. Ian Page asked me to play fullback in the first 15 game. And we just lost 54-0. How did I feel about going to play Otago Boys again? And bloody Rob Roy and all these big, Ken Stewart was going to... Anyway, we went to play them in an inter-school game. We lost 27-0, which was half. We went improved by half, didn't we? And I'll never forget, all the way through school, when I was playing cricket or basketball or squash or rugby, I always thought, before I finish, we've got to do better. And it was a sort of a strange, I didn't share that, but I always had it. And my last inter-school with the Otago Boys, we drew 11 all. It was like winning the bloody World Cup, I promise you. But it was a funny sort of feeling to know that were we the underdogs, and South Dunedin and up on the hill, and we laughed about it, but inside it sort of hurt a bit. I was lucky to play for the Otago under-21 team or under-20 team when I was only 15. When I say I was lucky, I was very lucky because there was no other wicketkeeper at the trials. So they still had to pick me. So I got picked in that team, and that same feeling came when we went to Hagley Park and we played for Otago against Canterbury, Wellington, CD, ND and Auckland at the National Under-20 tournament, that we all thought, I looked at the other players in the team, and they had the same feeling as me. I didn't talk to them about it, but they were the underdogs too. The guys in my own team, and I was the youngest player by far, but then I realised that it's not just me, we all felt like the underdog. And I've thought about that a lot, right through my life, that there is something about that in Otago and Southland, there is. And I don't like the negative motivation of I'm going to do it to prove you wrong, but we tried for a lot of time to turn that motivation round into a combined team effort. I was always extremely strong of the opinion that all the superstars they bring won't worry us at all. We'll have a team of no names, but if we stick together and we just keep working, and we stick together as a close group, we'll win our games in the end. Fortunately, I went on and I played later on for the Otago senior team, and that in itself was a lesson in life, because Jack Alabaster was just finishing. Shit was over frightened of him, I tell you. Green Alabaster was playing, Keith Campbell, Glenn Turner, Brian Andrews, Bevan Congdon, pretty good names really in the team, and Brian McKechnie and Warren Lett. And we were told by Gren to say nothing, do your very best, listen and you'll learn. Now, I don't know if we liked it. We both had hair down to about here. Can you imagine two young girls? As many as we could have spoken. It was a funny thing that Gren said that, I think it hurt both of us, but do you know we never had a drink with the team that whole summer, and we always went to find some pub around the corner to have a beer in without the other guys. We felt like the apprentices. We didn't have any conversation with the senior players. We were treated like the apprentices, and I don't think there was anything wrong with it. I honestly don't think it did us any harm. I'm not saying we should all go out and treat every youngster that way anymore, but it taught me a lesson about respect. We didn't have the right to question Green Alabaster, principal of one of the schools down in the south, and New Zealand cricketer, highly regarded family. I mean, we didn't have any right as a couple of 19-year-olds to question those people anyway. But we knew, I think from our families, that that was our place, and we would learn in time. Playing for Otago was quite a frightening experience, really. And we did sit in the corner and we did shut up and we nodded to each other a lot of times for a whole season, and we got through it. But we also gained a lot of experience just by watching those other players, and they were very good. To play for New Zealand has got to be something you really want to do with your life, and I probably wanted that. To play for New Zealand as an All Black, what I really wanted. I love rugby. I absolutely loved the game of rugby. And all through my King's days, and even when I went to Teachers College, I think rugby remained the #1 sport. It was the closest group of people that I could play with. And I really loved 5 years of rugby and enjoyed playing in a couple of representative teams as well, but cricket took over. I was in Italy on the so-called OE, my young wife and I, when we got this telegram. And you people are old enough to remember telegrams. They were white pieces of paper with the yellow piece glued to it, or the yellow piece of paper with a white piece glued to it. Warren Lees, care of some hotel, wherever we were in Italy. Please come home to join New Zealand team Pakistan tour. And I thought it must have been a mistake or a joke, and I thought someone was having me on. But home we came and joined the New Zealand team. And people didn't realise this at the time. They're slapping you on the back and buying another drink. Everyone was telling you how wonderful. We're a big fish then in a very small pond. And I knew that. But I came home to join the New Zealand team because we were like playing for the Brave under 20 team. They didn't have a wicket keeper. Ken Wadsworth had actually died. I got on the New Zealand team because the guy I replaced had died. For God's sake, you wonder where you've come from, really. I mean, I got in the first team for Otago when no other wicketkeeper turned up for trial. And now this is happening. So I go to join the New Zealand team. People don't understand what it can be like. We go to Pakistan. I joined the New Zealand team 2 days after we arrived in Pakistan. We're playing them in a test match. And I'm wicket-keeping as Majid Khan and some other Sadiq or someone, don't know their names, but they came out to open the batting. I'm absolutely petrified, and beside me there are 3 or 4 very experienced slips. And Majid Khan nicks the very first ball of the test match. Very, very fine edge. And the ball comes through to Warren Lees, who drops it. Very first ball in test cricket I ever wicket-kept, I've dropped the ball. And a wicket-keeper, when he drops the ball, first of all you try and make out that you didn't really drop it, so you sort of half pick it up as if you haven't really. Then you try and say, oh, he didn't hit it. He didn't nick it at all. But you know he did. And you just want to find a hole to crawl into. I'm with a new team that I've just joined. And as I'm throwing the ball out on the leg side to whoever's at mid-wicket to give the ball back to the bowler, I hear behind me one of the slips say to the other, this is going to be a bloody long tour. Ken Wadsworth would have swallowed that. And, I joke not, no one really talked to me for about the first 4 or 5 days of the rest of the tour from then on. I went to practice. Gary Troop was a young guy on the team. He knew what was going on, and he said, I bet you don't get a bat today. Didn't get a bat at practice. I used to bowl in the net. I'm a wicket-keeper. And meant to bat a wee bit. I used to bowl in the nets to some of the players like Mark Burgess or John Parker or Jeff Howarth or Glenn or whoever. I'd bowl in the nets for 2 hours. I'd get no wicket-keeping practice and I wouldn't get a bat. Because I didn't understand at the time. I had actually taken the place of their best friend. And I thought it was very unkind, but it's sort of in a way a wee bit natural, isn't it? You're sort of not sure about the new guy, but don't treat him. So I learned another lesson. I decided then and there that if I was ever captain or ever had anything to do with any sporting team, that would never happen to anyone. We have to be treated equally in order to perform. Now, I played for that New Zealand team on that tour. We went through the second, we lost the first test, we lost the second test, and you wouldn't believe what happened. This is what annoys me about people. They hadn't spoken to me, and strangely enough, everyone's in rooms of two twin rooms, except there was an odd room for a single. I had to have that. I'm homesick, crying every night, 23-year-old, missing his young wife back home and his own mother, right, dropping a catch, not being talked to by the players, Going to practice and spending the whole 2 hours, 42 degrees, just bowling, and I'm a bloody wicketkeeper, and thinking, is this fun or not? I'd get a message from home, hope you're having a wonderful time. From my grandmother in Bedford Street. Looks like all's going well. All's going well. It was awful. And in the third test, I scored 152. Don't ask me how, because I tell you what, I wasn't going to score 152 in all my tests after that. But I got 152, and this is what taught me a big lesson. Then they carried me around the ground on their shoulders, having ignored me for 4 days in the same team, not even wanted to have a lunch with me, making me room on my own in the bloody hotel, because I scored 152. Then they judged me then. Now, is there a lesson in that about life? Because are we all not equal? Do we not all deserve to have the same rights? And then the worst thing was, I was judged as a new boy, replacing Ken, but then all of a sudden, because I'd done well, that's even worse, putting me up there. That made me feel worse. I couldn't believe how adults in the team, experienced cricketers, didn't know as much as this young guy from the team. I was so disappointed. We played for about 4 years like that with New Zealand, and every time I played for New Zealand in the 4 years, while I was thrilled to get in, and it was a big excitement for Mum or my grandma or whoever, and even Dunedin people were quite loyal and quite keen, I never really enjoyed being in that New Zealand team. It was almost like I was lying. Oh, yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's great. Give me another beer. It's great. It's fantastic. And everyone thought it was wonderful. But every time I went anywhere, I didn't really seem to enjoy it. Because I sort of felt like I was the odd one out. I might have been, by the way. But it was like, here's one. Went to Eden Park for a test match against Pakistan and come back out the following year. And I got there late the day before the game. So the team are going out to practice at Eden Park, and I've got in from the airport late, carrying a 2 bag, one big bag, and we meet the manager, Frank Cameron, tall up there, who says, get your gear in the corner, the boys are still in there, but just get your gear and come out. I go into the dressing room, great, how you going? This is exactly what happened. Walked in, 3 people over there talking, 2 there. Not much room in the dressing room, and they've all got big cricket bags. And as I looked around, there was nowhere for me to sit. No, there was nowhere. And this is before a test match, the day before the test match. This is exactly what happened. So I looked around. In the shower rooms, Lee Smith and others, at Eden Park, there's sort of an opening from the dressing room into the shower room. Not a door on it, but just an opening. So I just thought, well, no one, g'day, how you going? And no one's talking, they're all talking to each other in little groups. So I put my gear out in the shower room. I thought I'd better just sit out there. So I got a chair and I put it out beside my gear in the shower room. Got my gear ready and we all went out to practice. Where we had practice, wonderful. Came back in after practice, the gear's in the shower. I thought, well, no one's moved yet. Even though they'd been asked by the manager to move, to let Wally in, no one moved, so I just sat there. Do you know, I sat in the shower room for 5 days. No one once said, come and sit beside me. Perhaps they didn't like me, and perhaps it was. No, I don't think it was that. I just think it was thoughtless. Absolutely. And it was just an example which made me think, is this a team game or what? And as Jeremy Coney said, he was playing that game, he said he didn't have much chance to perform. Jeremy, very, very thoughtful person. He said to me, he didn't have much chance to perform in the game. And I said, oh, no, I had my chances. He said, nah, you fell out of it, didn't you? He knew, but he didn't quite have the principle to do anything about it. There's a difference, isn't it? Because there are times where you want to do something and you don't quite do it. So as you can see, I learned some reasonably harsh lessons early on. And the rest of it about the bravado and all that about playing for your country is sometimes a wee bit of a facade, really. Because everyone likes to be liked. Don't worry about that. There's no one in this room who doesn't like to be liked. We prefer it that way than the other way. But when you're just left alone... See, I always talk about kids who come to a new school. I don't sleep for the sake of that kid who shifts schools and they get left on their own. Or they get looked after by another pupil who's been told by the teacher to look after them, which wasn't natural. You see, I always think those things. There's no worse emotion than loneliness. There is nothing in the world as bad as loneliness. And I learnt those things early on by playing in that game, in that team. And that lasted 4 years, and we didn't win many games. And then just by coincidence, the New Zealand selectors, and they would not have done this seriously, because they didn't have the nous to do it, they picked a team to go on tour to Australia, and just by coincidence, we were all the same age. We were all in the same situations. And I'll tell you, we were all about 25, 26. These are the names, and you'll recognise some of them, I hope. There's the Coney, and there's Wright, and there's Edgar, and there's Bock, and there's Troop, and there's Hadley, and there's, luckily, Lee, no one else turned up, and there's Lees, and we're all about the same age. And guess what? We were all married or recently married. We all, apart from the two who went to England, who played professionally, we were all had other jobs. Lots of us were teachers, in actual fact. But our wives were included, and the little ones. There weren't many, there might have only been 2 or 3 little ones amongst the whole group, but we all included. And for some reason, New Zealand cricket said, and when you go around New Zealand, you'll all travel together. Do you know that it turned the whole thing about the cricket? It turned the whole thing about New Zealand cricket. No one knew it. I thought it at the time, but I knew it couldn't have been deliberate. And we had then 3 years of the best cricket team that I think we've ever had. And that was when we used to go to Australia and win those tri-series, you know, India and Australia and us. And we started winning some games, and we never had an argument in 3 years. And we only used about 18 players in that whole time. But everyone was the same age. We could be open and honest with each other. We were having trouble at home, we were homesick, our baby was sick, or you would discuss it, and it was a great way to live as a big family. If only they knew that. But they did it by accident, which again was disappointing. I played for New Zealand on and off for a while, went to England. When I went to England, my mother said, and Mum didn't know much about cricket, to be honest, but I hope you go to Buckingham Palace, Warren. You're really going to enjoy it. I wonder if you meet the Queen. I wonder if she'll be there. That would be nice. That would be lovely. I thought, what are you on? Anyway, we go to every team that goes to England. Your highlight day, not just event, we've like today for me, is you go to Lord's and you have your photo taken in front of the pavilion, then you go back to the hotel and you get into your top gear and you go to Buckingham Palace. You wouldn't believe the difference in my feelings from when I joked with my mother to when I was getting ready to go to Buckingham Palace. All of a sudden this was, wow, was this happening to me? It was a long way from a kid in South Dunedin, in Law Street and East Avenue, to all of a sudden go to Buckingham Palace. I didn't know it was going to be like this. But I'll tell you another wee thing. This is bloody dreadful about New Zealand cricket. We had a manager called, I'll mention, Sir Alan Wright. Now you only Sir for a reason. Someone has decided you deserve to be Sir. Someone has decided you are the sort of person who earns that name. So the title Sir Alan Wright, we called him Sir Alan by the way, but Sir Alan Wright was a very wealthy North Canterbury farmer. And we had a guy in our team who was the scorer, who paid his own way to go to England, paid his own way. And if we go back to the 1970s, we would have called him a slow learner. He wasn't quick. He had difficulty mentally, but we looked after him. We called him matey. He loved being called matey because it was a sort of a term of endearment. It was a friendly thing to call matey because he struggled socially. So matey was our scorer. He's our scorer for the whole tour, and we used to take turns at letting him sleep on our floor because he couldn't afford the accommodation. And he paid his own way, and all they gave him, New Zealand cricket, was a meal allowance. So Jeremy and I, we got on pretty good with matey, and we let him sleep on the floor, and then we'd look after him, bring him some food and things like that. But he was our scorer. But on the day we went to Buckingham Palace, we were getting ready and we're all tying each other's ties. You can imagine what we're like. And Lance is yelling out, you've got to have a shave, for God's sake, have a shave, all these sort of things. And that happens in a team situation. We went downstairs to get on the bus, and matey was there. Big smile on his big red cheeks. I'm going to Buckingham Palace. The team started to get on the bus. And this is one of these principal moments. Now, I love these principal moments because I'm the most gutless person in the world. And as we all got on the bus, and matey went up the stairs, Sir Alan Wright stood up in front of the whole team, New Zealand team in England, John, you won't be coming to Buckingham Palace. You're not an official member of the party. Could you get off the bus? So John got off the bus in tears. Matey got off the bus in tears. Now I hope you've all had one of these moments, because immediately Warren Lees had that 30 seconds time. And Warren Lees said to Warren Lees, come on, come on. And you don't know what to do. Thank God for my own sake, because I do feel I got off the bus. And I said that if he doesn't go, I don't go. I thought, Mum, you're not going to be happy with me. And then there's another 30 second silence, because I'm standing on the path, and so is Matey. Sir Alan Wright, for God's sake, is in the bus looking down at us, and I'm waiting. And we waited the full 30 seconds. And Lance Cairns led the rest of the players off the bus. And all of a sudden you go, oh God, it was Keith Murdoch, he's going to be me, and oh God. But there are moments in your life where the principles have to take over. Principles of fairness have to take over. And that changed our cricket team. Now, I didn't have to do it, and I don't even know if I'd do it today. But on that moment, I was so proud. I was so proud that I did it. And Matey was in tears, and we all went to Buckingham Palace. The best thing that happened at Buckingham Palace, the Queen came in, we all met her, we all had to say our name and all that sort of, and then the Queen came over, went over to talk to a group of people. And you wouldn't believe what happened. Who did she talk to first? Matey. It was so good. The players had tears in their eyes, because we didn't realise how poorly you could treat people. We didn't realise how you could cut someone down so much, like John O'Sullivan. He's still around Canterbury. He's been in Brisbane as a scorer. He battles a bit. But what a thrill for him to go. It was a huge thrill for me, but a much bigger thrill for John O'Sullivan. I didn't play much longer for New Zealand. I had injuries. I wasn't good enough. I don't mean to be smart here. I was a very confident provincial player. I loved provincial cricket, and I loved the beating the big boys up north. Not always, but when we did win, you'd think it was the World Cup. We celebrated well. But I was never a good international player. And it was funny, because you reach your level, and even though I'd scored 152 in a game or whatever, I thought I could get back to that level. I just never ever felt in any way comfortable playing against the Lilies or the Joel Garners or Botham or those sort of people. I liked the idea of being there, but to actually force myself over the line was just a step too far. As soon as I gave up playing, I thought, well, that's it. My knee's gone. I'm going to jump just before I'm pushed. So I timed it quite nicely, and I all thought, what a lovely retirement, knowing that I was only about 24 hours away from that phone call we said, was going to say, don't come Monday. And then I was watching the Warriors play on a Sunday. The phone went in an afternoon on a Sunday, and Peter McDermott, the chairman of New Zealand Cricket, was there, and he said, I needed to have a chat to you. Have you ever thought of being a coach? I said, what do you mean being a coach? He said, well, we'd like you to consider coaching the Black Caps. And I said, why? I wish I hadn't. Because he said, we've tried 3 or 4 others. Why do they do that? So I took over the New Zealand coaching job, and I never knew this, but there is something about coaching and teaching which is very similar. And I always thought that when I played, I just play as well as you can, Warren. You just do your very best. And some days it worked and some days it didn't. There's nothing, there's just absolutely nothing as good as taking a group of young men, in this case, who were below average internationally, right? We weren't right up there. We just had the retirements of Bock and Snedden and Hadley, and Bracewell had gone, and so we took a whole lot of players to Pakistan. But to take that team of no names and mould them into I didn't do the moulding, but we moulded into a group of very close friends, and I was so lucky to have Martin Crowe, who was just sensational as a captain. I was with him for 3 years, and every single day when we were together as a team, he had to come and see me at 6 o'clock in the morning. And do you know, there wasn't one day in 3 years he didn't turn up. Unbelievable. He was there every single meeting. Every time we were in a hotel, anywhere together, he had to see me at 6 o'clock because we had to be clear about what we were doing. He was just so magnificent as a planner, and we had 3 wonderful years. That wasn't going to last long because of the bomb in Sri Lanka, and again, it was a principle. People say you came home from Sri Lanka because you were frightened. No, we weren't frightened. There wasn't going to be another bomb. It wasn't nice for someone from Dunedin or someone from New Zealand to experience what we did. 7 people killed in the bomb right outside our hotel. It certainly wasn't nice. We had people vomiting, 2 players fainted, people turned to all sorts of different things, and it was a horrible experience. But the choice was, the tour goes on, and therefore the players had no say, or some people could go home. Now 6 people came home from the tour. We never thought this at the time. The 6 people who came home from the tour were the 6 married people. They were the 6 married people with kids. And I think if that happened to me again, I'd do exactly the same again. The things that happened after the tour was called off, when Peter McDermott came over and bribed the players to stay on, it was probably the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. He said to Chris Harris, I was only allowed to listen. He said to Chris Harris, Chris, your father died recently, passed away. He played for New Zealand. Do you know, Chris, if you stayed on this tour, your father would almost turn this grey. I couldn't believe what he was saying. He said to Mark Haslam, who was a left-arm spinner from Auckland, when this team was picked, Mark, I told the selectors you weren't good enough. I don't think you are even now. So if you don't play, if you don't stay on this tour, you'll never play again. He said to Ken Rutherford, I know you enjoy a bet. Just between you and I'll send you get 15,000. No one else need know about it, but you'll stay on the tour, won't you? And I had to listen to all those. At that stage, I'm honestly crying in the room saying, how can you ever treat anyone like that? And I had to stand up and say, I don't care what happens. Moment of principle, I'm going home. So we went home, and I knew the job was over with the national men's team. But I would rather come home and not have the job than continue on in that vein and have a job that I felt I was doing a disservice to. I took over the women's team, and wow, was that fun. When I took over the Otago women's team, we only had 13 players in the whole province. And we were going to try and win a national. That's all the played. So everyone who put their hand up was in. That was selected. So we played for a year and we came about 4th. And then Susie Bates, I was pretty lucky to have Martin Crowe and Susie Bates, wasn't I? And then Susie and I had devised a plan on how we could win the following year. You wouldn't believe it, we won the damn thing. First time for 52 years, Otago had won a women's title. And we only had 17 players that year, so 5 of them were unlucky, weren't they? But it was just an amazing thing that you can go out and you can actually, if you work hard enough and everyone's going down the same road the same way, you can actually make a team out of anything. I really loved it. But the time did come for my kids, Greg's 35 and Abby's 31, to take me aside and say, Dad, that's it. You went to Clyde to retire. You went to Clyde for quite a life, and we've just worked out you had 12 weekends in a row away from our mother and your wife in the summer. You can give it away right now. So I listened to them, and I did exactly what they wanted. I thought I'd miss cricket. I thought I'd really miss the fact that I wasn't with a team anymore. And I don't even really watch it anymore. I don't even look up the papers. And I know you might hear my name and my voice on the radio in the morning sometimes when they're talking about cricket. If they ring me, I have to say, give us 10 minutes and I'll look it up. I didn't even know there was a game on, and then I have to make one up with a report about the game that was played yesterday. I sort of miss the camaraderie. I don't miss the cricket itself now. I do miss being with a group of blokes, I suppose. And I thought, I don't think that is ever taken away from us. We all remember when we were 7 years old, and we had a wee gang, and we made grass huts outside, or we played cowboys and Indians, or we all went down to Bathgate Park because Southern were practising and I wanted to watch Ricky Maines. playing cross one. I knew I'd get them tonight, Ricky, because I'm sorry, but I'm going to say this. When you're only about 10 years old, everyone has heroes. He was one. And it's not. But I think we all remember those days when we were little and we had sleepovers, girls, or we had a wee gang, people having fun. And I think we need that. I actually think we need to have people lean on at times. I think it's really important. And I know Dan's mentioned family. And I think our families are letting us down right around the whole country. And I think our parents, in the main, shouldn't be parents, quite honestly. And I think that's what one of our huge, big problems is. I've always had a big thing for special needs. And I had the special needs unit at Bayfield for a while. It teaches you an awful lot to be able to look at other people and realise just how lucky we are. We lost 54-0 to Otago Boys, right? Did we? God, we must have been down that day. Yeah, but you still had both arms, both legs, you still went to practice the next day, and you had another chance. Thanks very much.